how's it going? So this is a secret little bit that nobody gets to watch until it's been uploaded because nobody's here yet. So I'm doing a little pop-up class, right? We're going to wait for some people to roll in, so I'm not teaching to nobody because that happens sometimes. But yeah, hey, here comes people. If you're watching this right now on YouTube, this was a live pop-up class on Instagram, and I've started doing these live pop-up classes on Instagram because Instagram no longer allows me to upload long format video like what they used to have IGTV, but I can do a live and I can save it and then people can see it and then I can just download it and then upload it to YouTube, just like that. So actually, this is a little bit of like a celebratory, fuck it, I'm celebrating. I'm celebrating because I actually just hit 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. Woo! And that feels really cool. Now, I've been at 100,000 on Instagram for a while, like stagnant, right? But on YouTube, it's a little harder. They actually will send me like a plaque to like award me for my achievement if I like apply for it. But I just feel like it was cool. It was like a milestone to cross, especially since you consider that all of my videos on there are just straight up shot with a cell phone. I don't edit shit. Because I'm like, listen, if I'm going to do these videos, they have to be really simple, right? I don't want all that equipment. I don't want to freak out and take hours after I make a video to upload it to hope that it's perfect. But also, I feel like that removes the humanity from my videos, and it makes people like in real life, we don't get like cutaways and shit. We don't have like background aesthetic music and swipe in information, right? I'm like, nope, this is me. This is how I come. Take it or leave it. So today in our live pop-up class, we are going to learn about brewer's yeast. Now, I know this isn't technically an herb, but it's something that you definitely need to know about. So I just thought, you know, I needed to make myself some, and I hit 100,000 followers on YouTube, so I was like, let's make a video. So you, like every other human, are probably at this point, especially if you live in a first world country and live off of like processed foods, and if you live under a ton of stress and you have digestive issues and all this kind of stuff, you're probably deficient in various forms of vitamin B. There are tons of forms of vitamin B, like a shit ton, right? Some really crucial ones are B1 and B12, that's thiamine and riboflavin. Those get depleted by all kinds of things like stress, medication, genetics, all kinds of stuff, right? But then, I should also say antibiotics, when I say medications, are really, really sinister, especially if you're looking at like ciprofloxacin, anything in that type of family. They call them black box antibiotics. They tend to get past your brain barrier and do all kinds of shit. But they also deplete your body of a lot of key vitamin Bs. And that can have symptoms like brain fog, anxiety, mental health, like straight up schizophrenia if you get deficient enough in some types of Bs, including B12, which we'll talk about in a little bit. You can have neuropathy, you can have like gut problems, heart problems. Every cell in your body in various ways works with various types of B vitamins. And so I really like working with brewer's yeast because it does have a fair amount of thiamine, riboflavin, and folate. Now, there is no B12 in this because it's not been synthetically vitaminized. That's what I'm going to say. It's not been enriched is the technical term, but I think I like the term vitaminized. My brain was like, what's the word? Call it vitamized. And that stuff is like really not super great for you, so I usually use this Solgar type, but it's super easy. But most people will just buy this and start eating it. Now, somebody said that it gives them a migraine. Now, it could still give you a migraine after this tip, but let's see if it doesn't. I want you to make it differently. I don't want you just to eat this like people show you, like it says on the thing. I want you to make an infusion. So first thing we're going to do is pull out the handy electric kettle and hit boil. So I'm going to get that water boiling. I pre-boiled it before I hopped on, so it shouldn't take too long. Now I'm going to put, I know numbers, 3, 1, 2, 3 tablespoons of my brewer's yeast in the bottom of this jar. Now, this little thingy measures 1.5 tablespoons, so again, I swear to God, I can count. So I'm going to go 1, 2, and now that's actually 3 because again, look, it's 1.5 tablespoons. So my water is already boiling. It's because I pre-boiled it. It'd be awesome if it boiled that fast, but it is pretty quick. It boils in like 3 minutes or something like that. And now I'm going to take my boiling water. See it? There it is. You can see it. And I'm going to just dump it over top. Now, most people will be eating this, but did you know that brewer's yeast is full of phytoestrogens, but only in the solids? And that vitamin B's, particularly the B1 and the B2 and the folate that we're after, they are heat soluble. So the hot water isn't destroying the B vitamins, it's actually extracting it out of the brewer's yeast. So, grab something to stir with, and a fork will do because there's no clean spoons in there. And I'm just going to give it a stir. Now you are going to cap this, but stir it before you cap it, and don't shake it. Remember, it'll go, the hot water will go everywhere. Just give it a stir. Now, I want you to set this aside for a couple hours all the way up. Like sometimes I make it in the morning and then I strain it in the evening, right? You're going to set this aside for a couple hours. It's fucking hot. Be careful. I'm just going to like carefully slide this away. And this is one that I made a few hours ago. Check that out. Do you see what happened here? So I've made an extract, basically. I have, for all intents and purposes, extracted out all of the vitamin B's, but also like 18 different amino acids. It's crazy. Look at the back of the panel in this. Those are all amino acids, tons of them that you need. And these amino acids are also really crucial for uptaking vitamins and like, you know, keeping your body in like one big piece instead of like slothing off onto the ground into a meat bundle. You need more amino acids in your life. And so, no, the hot one won't explode. I mean, if you shook it, it would spray out everywhere, but it won't explode. No. So now I've let this other one that I pre-made, I let this sit for a few hours, and you can see all this sediment on the bottom. The sediment has a lot of phytoestrogens in it, which are estrogen, which leads to estrogen dominance, and it can give you headaches and make you flush and feel nasty. And we're all pretty much estrogen dominant at this point in time because they put fucking soylage and soy this and soy that and PUFA oils and everything, right? But also we have our homes bombarded with like endocrine disruptors. So like things that like make you create more estrogen or block, you know, certain pathways that help your body or prevent your body from, you know, shitting out the excess hormones, because that's what happens when you take a shit, excess hormones leave your body. So now what I'm going to do, that I've let this sit for a while, alright, I'm just going to slowly, don't shake it, I'm going to spill it a little bit because I'm going really slow. I am just pouring off until I get, whoop. Now I have the sediment. Look how thick that is. That's what I put in there, right? And now I basically have my infused vitamin B water, right? I'm using Solgar's. There are a lot of other brands, but make sure that it's not been, what I said earlier, nutritionalized. Make sure it's not been enriched where they add synthetic vitamins to it. And nutritional yeast is not the same thing. This is brewer's yeast, and it's completely different. So now I have basically the sludge that I don't want to consume on the bottom, and I have the extracted B vitamins as well as the amino acids, which are also heat soluble and stable, in this cup. Honestly, to me, it tastes like kind of a tangy chicken broth, if that makes sense. And so it's really, really easy to do. It is really easy to do. But also, let me talk about this for a second, and this will get me yelled at for various reasons. Most people are B12 deficient. That's a really big one, but there's no B12 in this. However, there are precursors. You need like the folate and the riboflavin and the thiamine to be able to process B12, because the body's not like a car. It works in conjunction, and nature doesn't make mistakes. But the thing is, you can only find B12 in meat. I will say that again. You can only get B12 in a bioavailable form from eating meat. A lot of people don't eat meat, and a lot of people don't eat enough meat. Now, you can supplement, but some people will be like, oh, such and such has B12 in it. I'm like, I understand that you think that, but it has a precursor to B12, and ironically, really ironically, that precursor takes vitamin B12 out of your liver to try to convert it, and you end up depleted in B12. Right? And so it's like, we think that we've been told that we can get B12 without eating meat, but it's just not true. And I say that as a person that lives with pernicious anemia. That means that I have like this weird little autoimmune thing going on my gut that makes it hard for my body to utilize B12, which means that not only do I eat like a lot of meat and liver, and I have my own cattle and dairy goats and all kinds of things like that, but it doesn't matter. So I have to take B12 shots once a week for like the rest of my life. But that is pointless if I'm not doing things like cofactors, which includes other B vitamins, which includes lots of potassium-rich foods and lots of iron-rich foods, and folate is a really important one, right? These things are all cofactors. Now, I want you to think about your symptoms. Do you have tingling feet? Do you have numbness? Does your mouth ever burn? Do your lips ever burn? Do you have brain fog? Do you have gut issues? Do you have heart issues? Do you have blood sugar issues? Do you have, oh my God, B12 deficiency as well as thiamine have like literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of symptoms. Did you know if you're B12 deficient enough that they can diagnose you with MS? It's crazy. And we don't test for it. And because they put folate and like synthetic folic acid in all of the food in the US and other countries now, it often masks B12 deficiency on a serum level test. That means when they take your blood and they go to test it, they're like, good job, you're fine, you have enough B12 in your body, but you actually don't, because you need active B12. You need to see the size of your cells and if you're pissing it out or if you're using it. There's a bunch of complicated stuff to it, but doctors, particularly in the US, get like less than a week of training about vitamin Bs. It's crazy. So yeah, if you are a vegetarian, there is B12 in dairy products, but it needs to be raw for it to be like really active. And there are some studies that say when you take like raw dairy and you turn it into like milk kefir, you know, like using a culture, it increases the level of B12. So there are some, I guess you would say, meat adjacent ways like eggs and stuff, but it's probably not enough. So you'd want to make sure that you got a bioavailable supplement that allowed you to have, you know, enough B12 in your diet, because you're not going to get it from just a little bit of stuff here and there. People ask me about the B12. You want to look at your intrinsic factor, but just so you know, that's only like 40% accurate. Intrinsic factor means that they're looking for like these particular antibodies that attack vitamin B12, but you can have pernicious anemia without that being accurate. You want to look at your MCV value, your mean corpuscular value, which means the size of your red blood cells. If your blood cells are really enlarged, anywhere in the high 90 range, and you can look at different labs, which is called MCV, you likely have anemia of some sort, and it's usually linked to B12 or folate. Those two go hand in hand. Now, I was probably low-level pernicious anemia most of my life, but I grew up eating a lot of meat and liver and organs, so it didn't affect me, because before B12 shots were created, they started just giving you liver all the time or you would die, right? But then what happened is I like grew up in a really stressful life, and then like more stress happened, and then I like created a big business, and like 2020 happened, and like no matter how much I ate, I couldn't keep up, and I depleted myself in the beginning. Oh yeah, that's a good one to mention. Somebody said my B12 always comes out high, and I've been plant-based for a while. So the thing to know about pernicious anemia is that you can take a B12 serum test and it'll show that it's high. That doesn't mean that's a good thing. It means that your body actually isn't utilizing the B12. The B12 that you're ingesting, that you're getting, is not being utilized. And that's actually a huge red flag for pernicious anemia, right? And so you would have to start taking like shots, because it gets into your system not through your digestive tract, and so it can move its way into your cells. I think the website's called b12info.com. Something like that. You'll Google it, it'll come up. It shows you all the symptoms, all the things that are misdiagnosed as it, and what tests to ask for through doctors, or to do it yourself. Honestly, I order a lot of my own labs through like Quest or like walk-in labs, because I'm like, I don't have time to argue with this guy that's gonna like treat me like I'm, you know, inferior because I'm a female and I have knowledge. You know, doctors tend to get mad about that stuff. But anyhow, so I know I got sidetracked there, but a big part in taking care of my vitamin B levels and making sure that I don't suffer from things like blood sugar regulation or like tingling in my feet. I actually figured all this stuff out about a year or so ago, when I was like, why is my mouth burning. And at first I fell down the rabbit hole of like histamine reactions. Like I thought I was allergic to histamines, and I had developed that because that can come from elevated cortisol and stress. But I was like, it doesn't fit, because I would eat some foods and it wouldn't cause it. It just kind of came and go at will, right? And I was like, well, and I woke up at like 2 in the morning. My brain's like, it's vitamin B12. It like served it up, and I fell down the rabbit hole. Ended up being able to like factually with labs diagnose myself with pernicious anemia. And then get this. My mom goes, oh yeah, Uncle Ray had to take shots for the rest of his life because he had pernicious anemia. I'm like, oh, it can be genetic. And so I'm like thinking about my mom and the stuff she goes through. I'm like, oh, you probably have pernicious anemia too. It was probably passed down. So as far as how long I let this sit, for this video, this one only sat for about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. But usually what I do is I make it in the morning and I let it sit all the way to the evening. I like it warm, so I warm it back up because it reminds me of broth, but you can drink it cold too. Just let it sit till room temperature, basically, and then you can let it sit a little bit longer. It'll be a little bit clearer after that, but you'll have all the sludge to cast off, right? You can see how it coats the jar, right? And that's where all of your solids are. That's where you get like, you can end up with headaches. You can feel nasty for it. Now, I will say, if you decide to start making this and drinking this, I want you to go slow. Because sometimes when we're deficient and stuff, they have this thing called reversing out, right? So when I first started taking my loading doses for B12, which is where I had to take a shot every single day for a month, I felt like I was gonna fucking die. I did not feel great, but what it does is your cells are literally turning back on, and that kind of feels gross. But I will say that now, even though I've still got a ways to go, I feel a million times better. I don't have like burning in my feet, I don't have numbness in my mouth, my mental health is better, my sleep is better, my blood sugar is better, all of that kind of stuff. And so with this one, it's got thiamine in it. And now thiamine, you don't need a ton of thiamine to start reversing a deficiency. But if you're deficient, it can make you feel gross, right? So make this amount and then drink it over like 3 days, right? Don't just instantly start pounding it. So yeah, I mean, it was really easy. I made this video a little longer than I even needed to because I was just talking about other random information in my mind. But really all I did was I took a jar, I put 3 tablespoons of the brewer's yeast, and I like the Solgar brewer's yeast because it doesn't have anything nasty added to it. And then you pour boiling water over the top of it, and you let it sit until basically all the sludge separates off. Look, it already started. This is the one, ooh, it's still hot to the touch. This is the one that we just made, and you can see it's already separating, right? And you can definitely let it sit longer. I wouldn't use this one right away. It's too hot. Somebody said, how did I get my B12 shots? You know, I don't know that I would feed the sludge to pets. Somebody asked about giving it to their plants. I've never tried that. I don't know. You have to look at the pH of it and see what would happen. So as far as the B12 shots, at first I went to a cosmetology place that offered B12 shots, and it was like, I don't know, it was like $100 for like 5 shots. Like if you bought 4, you got 1 free, right? And I did that first because sometimes people, like very rarely, but can have like an allergic reaction to it, especially if they're really depleted. And so I went and got the shots there first. And you know what's crazy? The first shot I got, I don't know how to explain it, but it felt like I could suddenly breathe. Oh yeah, by the way, shortness of breath and all that stuff is B12 deficiency too, and it's just, it felt like I could breathe again. It felt like I could relax, like my whole body took a breath, right? And then I was just like euphoric for days. Not like I wasn't high, but I was just like, wow. And then all of a sudden I had a little bit of energy, and I was like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna clean this kitchen, right? And then I was like, I did it, and I was like, wait, you have to preserve your energy even if it comes back, right? And so I did that for a while. And then I ended up ordering ampules, which are like these little, like, I don't know, you get them and they look like these little miniature beer bottles that are all solid glass full of the vitamin B12. I ordered those from Germany because over there you don't have to have a prescription for it. So I ordered those, and then I ordered myself some syringes, which I get the 30 gauge with thin wall, so it's like a tiny needle you barely feel. And I started doing what they call SI, which is self-injection, because I wasn't going to spend that much every month, especially with how often I genuinely needed it. But anyhow, But yeah, I mean, it has been a huge thing for me. So it all started beyond the burning mouth is I started getting what they call reactive hypoglycemia, which is like the polar opposite of diabetes. Like, you know, when you're diabetic and you eat, or you know, for at least for type 2, you eat and your blood sugar skyrockets, right? And you go into this hyperglycemic, not hypo event. Well, what I would eat, it would be normal, and then it would go boom. It would just drop on me, right? And so the first time it happened, I was like, what the fuck is wrong with me? And my dad's a diabetic, so I always keep that type of stuff around. I thought I had high blood sugar. Actually, I only had a blood sugar of 30. And for those of you who don't know, that's like pretty close to having a seizure. You don't really want to really go, like 50 is dangerous, right? You don't really want to go below like 80. Right? Most people are in the 80 range if they're not diabetic, if they've not been eating, right? And then the next morning I woke up and had like a weird out of body, like I was fully experiencing what they call, deassociation. I didn't feel like myself. I didn't think I was like, what the fuck, husband? I think I'm having some sort of like psychotic break because nothing looks real. You don't look real. And he's like, let's check your blood sugar. It was so low that the blood sugar meter couldn't read it. Couldn't read my blood sugar levels. And that means that I was probably about to have a seizure, and I like pounded a bunch of maple syrup with raw milk because I want the glucose back in me, but I also wanted protein so it went a little more steady. And it took me about 2 hours to get my blood sugar back up to a stable level. And I was like, what is going on here? I went to a diabetic doctor, right? And he basically, this motherfucker said, you're fat, here's a Dexcom, lose some weight. And I'm like, what the fuck? I weigh 134 pounds and I'm 5'4". I'm like in my ideal range. I'm perfectly fine, right? And so he wouldn't listen to any of the concerns I had, and I start doing research, and sure enough, B12 is really critical for doing things like processing glucose and keeping your glucose steady and things like that. And after about a month of the B12 shots, by the way, the hypoglycemia went away and my blood sugar is fine. So, you know, anyhow, so yeah, people are like, why do you do your own labs? I'm like, well, maybe I don't want to talk to the mean old white doctor who would just tell me that I'm fat and throw a fucking glucose meter at me, right? But long story short, that's how you make infused, that's how you make infused brewer's yeast water. So if you like these random pop-up videos, if you like these videos you're watching on YouTube, it would mean the world for me if you could like, comment, share, subscribe, turn on notifications. Now, if you want to support like my existence so I can do things like buy brewer's yeast and, you know, toilet paper, general things like that, consider either following the link in my bio or checking it out in the description if you're watching on YouTube, like for my shop. I make all kinds of great things. I also have like a little Amazon shop thing where I show you where I get things like this kettle or that brewer's yeast or other things that I use. But most importantly of all, I need you to understand that you are absolutely smart enough to do this. You are smart enough to take your health into your hands. You are smart enough to figure out what's going on with you. And of course it's okay to go see a doctor and have that type of help, but you are smart enough to advocate for yourself too. And you are certainly smart enough to put some brewer's yeast in a jar and pour some boiling water over it, let it sit for a while, and pour off the liquid and leave behind the sludge. You can do that. You absolutely can do that. I don't care what you believe. I believe that for you. You are smart enough. So thank you so much for joining my pop-up video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. And yay, 100,000 followers on YouTube, and I will see you next time. Bye.